Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to you all to this edition of The Inside. I am Babla Jonathan. Today we are examining or analyzing some recent happenings in the country, in the Republic of Cameroon, notably with regards to the forthcoming presidential election and calls for change, notably at the helm of the state. We are also looking at issues concerning the situation in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, the two predominantly English-speaking regions of the country that have been in security tensions for over 8 years now. And we're going to be looking briefly at the current situation on the ground as government continues making efforts to resolve the conflict, the cessation conflict, while the situation remains volatile in the two English-speaking regions of the country. We'll be focusing also on the bicultural nature of Cameroon, with the key aspect of language, which has today become more or less a curse, whereas it should be a blessing. And we are asking the question, has it become a curse? What to do to reverse the situation? And we are looking at, in that perspective, we are looking at the promotion of bilingualism in the midst of a conflict directly linked to the bicultural nature of Cameroon, and we're focusing more on the key aspect of language, which is very important as far as the bilingual nature of Cameroon is concerned. With our guest in some few seconds. Thank you for staying with us. Our guest today is ELIME WINSLOW. He's a journalist, linguist, researcher, translator, regional director of the bilingual training program for the southwest region of the country. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you, Joe.
Right. How is the situation in the southwest? You're resident in Boya. Tell us, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What's happening there?
I think the situation in the southwest now is that of relative calm. Relative calm because the level of tension and brutality that characterized the Anglophone crisis has reduced to a certain level that people are relatively freer to move about their activities. That notwithstanding, there are still sporadic incidents of violence, destruction of human life and material property, as well as the killings. Like just yesterday, we had the burning down of close to 30 villages in Bisoro-Balwe in the Dian division, which is a very embarrassing situation, which is proof of the fact that we still have a lot to do to completely eradicate this calamity.
Right. The authorities have been saying that the situation is improving, but we also have reports indicating that the situation remains very much volatile, especially in areas away from the urban centers like Boya and so on. And from the eye of a reporter who sees through the lenses of objectivity, impartiality, balance, what do you think about the current situation? Is there improvement? Are we gradually moving towards return to normalcy in those two regions?
Objectively, first of all, as a journalist, I am an objective observer of the society, and I can assure you honestly that the situation is improving. Improving because of the following reasons. In the past, there are areas to which you couldn't have access because of constant gunshots, because of constant killings and fear and panic. Today, we can reach such areas. Secondly, the level of mobility, social mobility within the regions has improved a lot. If I take Monday, for example, which was declared a permanent lockdown day, if you come to Boya now on Monday, you discover that there is an increase in the number of taxis that you find in the streets. In the past, 4 or 5 years ago, you could hardly find a taxi in Buea. But now, some people even take the courage, which I call, being extremely courageous to travel sometimes from Douala to Buea to Douala and back on some Mondays. So this is proof that the situation is gradually improving. I can also assure you that the number of schools which were locked down as a result of the crisis have reopened. If you go to Munya, for example, you hardly would you find a student going to school in Munya. But if you go to Munya now, you discover that many schools have reopened their doors. So that is proof. If you go to Muyuka, Muyuka was a very hot spot for the Anglophone crisis, because before settling in Buea, when I was a bilingual high school teacher, before entering the bilingual training program, the last colleges I taught were in Kumba. And so even when I was appointed regional director, I still had a lot of relations and some of my properties still in Kumba. 3-4 years ago, one would hardly have the courage to go to Kumba. Sometimes you get to the road and go back. But I can assure you, just in 2024, I've been to Kumba. I went to Kumba about 5 times, and I had no situations, no negative situation. Now I'm capable of traveling even with my service car, Buea to Kumba, Kumba Tombe. In fact, the stretch Kumba Tombe was completely inaccessible. But I can assure you that Sweden has done a good job to reopen the road. Some of us who come from Kupe Maninguba and Bange, for example, will find it easier to move from Buea to Kumba, which is just about an hour, Kumbalum, which is just about an hour, and in a short time you are in Melo, you can easily get to Bange, as opposed to the past where all vehicles, moving to Bange, moving to Bamenda, would have to go through Douala, then to Melo. So I can assure you that the situation has improved a lot.
The situation has improved, but there is still uncertainty.
Of course,
and fear.
Of course, there is still uncertainty and fear because a lot of things have happened as a result of the Anglophone crisis. A lot of people are still suffering from psychosis, from extreme trauma and fear. Those who have lost their family members in very brutal circumstances. Those whose family members have disappeared and cannot be found today. Those who have lost everything they had as property are still, bearing the fangs and the painful, excruciating hooks of this Anglophone crisis. So we cannot say all is well. It would be dishonest to say all is well, but a lot has improved. But we need to go a long way. In fact, we need to move on. Government, civil society, the traditional authorities,
the church
and so on, all the stakeholders have been working, people praying for the country, and I think today we can see a lot of results, positive results as a result of all that people have been doing, but still work is still on our table to do.
Right, and the President of the Republic on the 31st of December 2024 once more called on the separatists to drop their guns and go to the DDR centers and be reintegrated into the normal life trend. But what he said after that appeared to be a little bit problematic, in the sense that he said those who will not yield to his call, those who will not accept his olive branch, will simply be tracked, an indication of intensification of military action on the ground. Is military action helping the situation?
I think military action is, this question of military action can be looked at from 2 different angles. There are a good number of military forces, the police, who are doing an excellent job on the ground. And there are others who are completely doing the contrary. And that is one of the things that makes the situation complex, because within the same army, within the same police, you have wonderful young men, especially men, who take the courage to go out there, and I've discovered that there are communication gaps. As a promoter of bilingualism, I have always preached that the military forces, the police, the gendarmerie, we look at my thesis in École Normale, Advanced School of Education, where I wrote about official language bilingualism and the Cameroon Armed Forces. I have suggested that Anglophones entering the military, the police, and parliamentary institutions or professions should have a good and manageable level of French, and Francophones to have a good and manageable level of English. To an extent, this is happening, but you still have a lot of our brothers and sisters who do not master the other official language.
And that kind of disrupts,
of course, it creates tension when you cannot communicate with somebody, especially in a very volatile situation, a very, very violent situation like the crisis. There is a tendency to be brutal because there are communication gaps. So I can assure you that misinterpretation, because
action follows.
Of course, if you cannot, if a military man or a policeman wants to interact with a civilian, maybe he meets a situation which needs, he has come with good intentions. He might have come with good intentions to solve a problem, but the fact that he cannot communicate effectively with those he finds on the ground, maybe some people have caused havoc and they have run away, and the police have come to investigate. The first thing they do most of the time is just to get everybody into a lorry or so that they can carry out investigation. But now, if you cannot communicate with those people, what happens? The tendency is that you implicate them. And that is a problem, a very serious problem.
Right, and that's what you're trying to correct with your work in the perspective of promotion of bilingualism.
That's right.
Now, there have been a lot of talking, contradictory opinions and ideas being expressed here and there about the forthcoming presidential election and the possible candidacy of the President of the Republic or not. And this started gaining momentum after he said on the 31st of December that he remains determined to continue serving the nation, even though the Minister of Communication made known and made it very clear that his 7-year mandate is still on course. And he could have simply been saying that I'm determined to continue and finish my mandate, but also what he said pointed to a possible candidacy, the possibility of him standing for re-election, and the bishops came out to say, no, you should step aside, you cannot be standing for re-election, it's unrealistic, and all of that. What's your take about all of these issues with regards to the forthcoming presidential election?
My take, first of all, is that as a peace crusader, I have risked my life a lot during the Anglophone crisis in order to play my own role. In Bangem, for example, Bangem was the first town in the southwest region to say no to massive killings, no to secession,
violence and all that.
That's right. And the chiefs of Bangem, Chief Michael Ngwese, Minister Elon Paul Chair, in fact, all sons and daughters of Kupe Maninguba teamed up and put an end to this. So, first of all, I'm talking as a peace crusader and a patriotic son of this country, like you and our brothers and sisters outside there, that the first thing I would like to say in relation to the forthcoming presidential elections is that the law for fatherland should be the first consideration for anybody who wants to be a candidate and for anybody who wants to vote somebody into power. That is my first suggestion. As far as the question around President Biya taking another mandate is concerned, I would like to say here that this is a matter of political and social complexity. Why? Because his decision and his ability to take another mandate depends on the constitution of the party, of the CPDM party. It is also dependent on the constitution of the Republic of Cameroon.
Of course, Article 6, Sub 2 of the Constitution grant him that right.
That's right.
To stand for re-election.
Exactly.
And Article 27, sub 3, I think, so of the internal rules and regulations of the CPDM equally grant him that right as the natural candidate of the party to stand for re-election.
That's right. So I will not be prescriptive per se or ordering anybody, but I want that all of us have a conscience. Cameroonians have a conscience. Everybody is interested in peace and development. And whosoever wants anybody to be the next president, whosoever wants to be the next president should consider the Cameroon, that is the supreme interest of Cameroonians, which are peace, national unity, and development. That is what I can preach to whosoever. But again, to end on this point, the president has insinuated that he will continue his work. Let us wait and see during the declaration of candidacy. When people start tabling the candidacy, then at that level we'll know that, oh, he is determined to go in for another mandate. But for now, it will be a little presumptuous, a little premature to draw an objective conclusion as far as his next candidacy is concerned.
The Minister of Communication and Government spokesperson Rene Emmanuel Sadi, in his response to the bishops, said that the president had said that at the appointed time he will tell Cameroonians if he's going to rest in Bokmeka or if he will continue.
That's
so
right.
Wait for that time.
Of course.
But there were issues about the socio-economic situation of the country, which as of now is very poor, very bad, precarious for many Cameroonians. And those who are saying that he shouldn't stand for re-election are placing that on, are saying that on grounds looking at the socio-economic situation of the country, which is very poor. They think that no, he should step aside for somebody else to try to solve the problems that he has not been able to solve for 42 years. So, but let me have your take on the socio-economic situation of the country today.
Thank you, Joe. I think that as an honest son of this nation, I wouldn't want to be condemnatory on any particular person as far as the precarious socio-economic situation of our country is concerned. Because I believe that all of us are stakeholders of development. I'm not here to protect any particular individual. I believe that as the head of state, he has a mission and he has a responsibility. But I can assure you that the head of state is just one individual in the midst of 35 to 40,000 million Cameroonians. And I also want to assure you that when I hear a lot of people saying, oh, President Paul Biya has done this, President has failed, I would not objectively like to push every blame to the head of state. Because I have the feeling, the very strong feeling that if truly the president has failed, which I doubt, I have the feeling that the number of people, who surround him as managers of this nation, including myself, including you and the media, and so on, some of us have done worse things to put this country where it is. I would not like to, like a peace crusader, I would not like to hold any particular person responsible, but I want to assure that if you look at the behavior of those who have been given the mandate to ensure security in this country. A while ago we said a good number of them are doing a wonderful job, but I can assure you that as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned, for example, which has partly led us to this precarious economic situation, a good number of our brothers in the police and the army have decided to transform this crisis into a business affair and would not like to see it stop. And they are doing everything every day, so to continue inciting. Of course, there is evidence on the ground. I mean, for those who are failing to do their job.
In a nutshell, the blame is shared.
It's shared.
Everyone has
a part to play
in the situation we have now.
Of course.
And the change that we expect.
We expect everybody should put his hand or her hand on deck for the problems to be solved.
All right, let's go to the newsstands now. We're taking a look at what the newspapers reported this week, and we'll be right back after the press review. We begin the press review with the Guardian Post 2025 presidentials. Eric Chinje rubbishes calls for another beer mandate, insists at 92 no human being can rule a complex country like Cameroon, qualifies those pushing beer to stay in power, bunches of thieves wanting to maintain status quo, and reviews he likes beer but the president's failure heart-wrenching and warranting new leader. And he also urges the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM political party, and other political parties in the country to present new faces with outstanding political program to rebuild Cameroon. Those are the thoughts of veteran journalist Eric Chinje in this issue of the Guardian Post. Now another issue of the Guardian Post, raised to Unity Palace. Kavai urges Vatican to summon bishop who invoked devil in quotes, to succeed President Paul Biya, talking about the Bishop of Yagua, His Lordship Barthélemy Yaouda, who said recently in a statement that even the devil should take over first, and then we'll see what happens next. And House Speaker Kavayeke Jibril says that Vatican should invoke him for that statement with regards to the leadership of the Republic of Cameroon. Another issue of the Guardian Post 2025 presidentials, Akere Muna, the dark horse. And the paper is talking about the international anti-corruption crusader and good governance fighter for good governance, Akere Muna, who was said that he's going to be standing as presidential candidate in the forthcoming presidential election. And the paper says that amid increasing calls, even from prominent francophone politicians, that an Anglophone should succeed President Paul Biya at the presidency, Akere Muna is reportedly being heavily backed by the international community, especially given his exploits on the global stage. Now on the Cameroon Tribune, on the front page of Cameroon Tribune, présidentielle, les voix de l'investiture. The paper is normally is talking about the path that every political party takes to put forth a candidate for the forthcoming presidential election. Combating roadside selling is another article in this issue of the National Daily. And vendors illegally occupy roadsides in the nation's political capital started liberating them following January 10 decision by the city mayor to do so or face the heavy arm of the law. That article you can find on page 14 and 15 of the National Daily Cameroon Tribune. And we continue with Cameroon Tribune to talk about the Defense and Security Forces 2025 in security. This is what we have on the National Daily with regards to efforts that have been made by the Ministry of Defense to ensure that there is peace before, during, and after the forthcoming presidential election in Cameroon. Now, municipal updates, using people as human shield, unearthing brutal reality of Amba atrocities in Bamenda. The paper takes its readers through the atrocities being committed by armed civilians in the town of Bamenda, and highlighting the issue of human beings being used as shields in the Anglophone conflict. Now another issue of the National Daily Cameroon Tribune, digitalisation de l'état civil, urgence signalée. The paper highlights the urgency, the fact that it is urgent to digitalize civil status services in the country. And on the front page of municipal updates at opening of the 6th annual workshop in Boya, the minister reaffirms government's zeal to boost decentralization, and decentralization minister Elanga Obam and others were meeting in the southwest regional capital Boya, and the minister highlighted the need to boost the country's decentralization process. Indicates that a 14-member commission that was put in place by the French government in 2003 to bring to light more information about actions of the French government during the colonial and post-independence era in Cameroon has handed in a report of its findings to the French President Emmanuel Macron during a ceremony in which President Paul Biya was represented by his Director of Civil Cabinet, Samuel Vondo Ayolo, led by French historian Karine Raimondi and the Cameroonian music icon Blick Bassin. The body carried out extensive research over a period of 24 months, which included field data collection from several colonial era and contemporary documentation. And that's it for the Thank you for staying with us. We are still with our guest, ELIME WINSLOW, journalist, linguist, researcher, translator, and regional director of the bilingual training program for the southwest region of the country. You are in the southwest region and you are promoting bilingualism on the ground. We're in a place which is today known as Ground Zero.
That's right.
Ground Zero because of the conflict happening there. Now, tell us, how challenging is it to do this?
Extremely challenging. As far as I'm concerned, as a regional director for the promotion of bilingualism in the Southwest region, I consider the Anglophone crisis as the worst calamity that ever befell Cameroon, considering its numerous socio-economic, cultural, you even have historical, traditional, religious, and political, harmful consequences. The Anglophone crisis in the Southwest region, first of all, inflicted a lot of fear and uncertainty. Fear and uncertainty because nobody will know when shots will be heard. Nobody will be sure whether the following day he or she will be able to go out of his house. The next thing is that all of that has led to a lot of losses. Human loss, material losses. Some people have lost their houses, their homes. Some people have lost their businesses. People invested hundreds of millions in businesses and they ended up, losing everything. And at the end of the day, some of them have died out of panic, out of frustration. The Anglophone crisis created a transport difficulty because you cannot move out of your house, first of all, when you are not sure of your security. The second thing is that you may not be able to find a transport means, either a bike or a car to take you to where you are going. And so a lot of people who would have wanted to come to the linguistic centers for training would have a huge obstacle, which is transport. And then there are lots and lots of control services within the region. Sometimes for a distance of 100, 200 meters, you can find 4 checkpoints or 4 control posts, and it becomes extremely frightful sometimes and very difficult for people to move about. And another thing we have seen is that the Anglophone crisis led to low enrollment of students because of the reasons we have given, and low income to people. There are people who want to come to the linguistic center for training, but they don't have the means. They have been impoverished by the crisis. We've had consistent power failure as a result of the crisis. If I take an energy as well, for almost a year now, the Linguistic Center has been completely cut off from internet connections. And we have incessant, power outages. And with this, it becomes extremely difficult, because one of the things that attracts students in the linguistic centers is their ability, children, especially children, or the youth, are so inclined to manipulating their phones, going online for research and so on. But if you cannot provide internet services, automatically you will not have that, you will not be able to pull students to you. So the copper system of the internet was vandalized, and we have issues of internet connection. And this has gone a long way to delay our processes of documentation. You want to write a report, for example, or you want to do research, or you want to connect with other colleagues, or to market the program, and you have issues, being able to. And one thing is that when machines are not connected to internet, they break down so fast. And so we have had a lot of issues, to that effect. Now, I, for example, including some of my colleagues, we've had a lot of threats, anonymous calls to me as the director of the main center in Buea and its annex in Limbe to close down the center. And sometimes I'm given a deadline to which I don't respect, my life is going to go. Sometimes I'm asked to give 500,000 francs or 1 million francs within a deadline, which if I fail to doing that, I will be arrested, kidnapped, or killed.
Do the anonymous callers tell you why they want that center closed down?
Some of them will tell you that the military, forces of law, and others are planning to come and burn down the linguistic center so that they can, tag that calamity on Amber Boys. And so they will say they are working in my interest. But I will tell them, if you are working in my interest, introduce yourself. Let me know who is calling me. Let me know who is sending me messages. Because if you are a man or a woman of goodwill, then you should not fear to introduce. And I cannot keep communicating with you, keep responding to you, if you cannot identify yourself. And so at the end of the day, I would simply, go to the regional service of the gendarmerie, the Legion, write to the governor's office, call the governor's office, and I'll be asked to write to all the security services, the police, and so on. And sometimes, in the course of tracking, some of those people discover that, hey, somebody is detained in New Bell in Douala. A detainee in New Bell in Douala.
It means the call came from New Bell.
Of course. Sometimes from New Bell, sometimes from people, who are just around you. People who know you. And that is why we were for close to, so during this period, we decided to stop handouts and brochures that bear our references, like telephone numbers and other references, because people easily use that to get to us. And so I decided to create an online platform, and this is the platform that has been helping us. So sometimes I receive calls now from Chad, from Equatorial Guinea, because of that Facebook page, sometimes from Mali, and we use the WhatsApp and other platforms for information in order to avoid, the crisis has led to a situation whereby sometimes you get to the linguistic center and you are not sure that you'll get back home, or you are not even sure that you'll get to the center. And so what do? I have to disguise. I have to disguise and dress like with slippers, like somebody who is going to buy what they call the saksamoto, a little market bag, and somebody who is just going around to pick vegetables behind the farm, and I will meander in the quarters and get to the center. I had to get a little mattress so that when the worst comes to the worst, I can spend the night in the center, and some dresses, and so that is how nobody will know who you are. My predecessor told me that he was tapped for killing, for elimination, because he kept on using the service car, by maintaining the number plate, the CA number plate.
And he was targeted.
Of course. So as soon as I got there, like many other people, I had to remove the CA number plate for some time. Now I brought it back, removed it for some time, so that I should avoid being targeted. because sometimes people would see a service car somewhere, the next thing is that they'll burn the car. So those are some of the things we have been going through. So it has been extremely challenging.
And despite the difficult context, you are still there, still pushing through, still struggling to get to the center, using whatever means you can use to continue. What is keeping you going?
What is keeping me going, Babila, is first and foremost my belief. I strongly believe that my appointment as Regional Director for the Bilingual Training Program for the Southwest is a divine arrangement. And that is where I tap much of the courage, because you cannot imagine that 3 years ago, I introduced bilingual training to fresh student pastors of the PCC at the Theological Seminary in Kosala. I have to disguise like an ordinary citizen and take a bike to be able to go there. Sometimes I have to come like a pastor to be able to enter the seminary. Sometimes while teaching in the evening, because it's block teaching, so that I work all day, I have to stop classes because they are gunshots, because Kosala is the epicenter, of course, So one of the things is, first of all, my belief that God has sent me for a mission, and that I'm somebody who suffered a lot at childhood. I lost my father and my grandfather on the same day. I had 1 month to write the GCO level. I was bedridden of Musong, and people knew that I was going to die. So I had the feeling that God, allowed me to feel a lot of pain in childhood to be able to give me, that spiritual boost.
Challenges.
Of course. And that is why I know I'm serving my nation. I am prudent and careful about what I do. But when my spirit tells me go, I go.
All right. Now, you're trying to help Cameroonians to tap the benefits in the bilingual and bicultural nature of the country. But today, this bilingual nature of the country is looking more like a curse because of the issues in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. And this is a constitutional provision in Article 1. In Article 1, Sub 3 of the Constitution, where it is written that the official languages of the Republic of Cameroon shall be English and French, both languages having the same status. The state shall guarantee the protection of bilingualism throughout the country. It shall endeavor to protect and promote national languages. Now, this is what you're trying to do on the ground. But it's today, the bilingual nature of the country seem more or less like a curse because of the problems in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, before answering your question, I wanted to add a second important factor which is behind our success. If the coordinator of the bilingual training program, Professor Echu, could congratulate us last year, it is down to the fact that I have a dynamic team too. Men and women who suffer demotivation, little, remuneration or nothing, but still move on. So I have
braving the challenges.
Braving the challenges. That is, I should not forget that. Jean-Baptiste Obama once said that le bilinguisme camerounais est un accident colonial, mais un véritable atout pour le développement du pays. So we have two things: a colonial accident, and then an indispensable tool.
The blessing coming out of the accident.
Of course, that's right. A blessing in disguise. Now, I can assure you that in the context of the Anglophone crisis, it sounded more like a curse, because when I had the courage to do a little marketing, when I came with all that enthusiasm to do a little marketing from time to time, now people will say, so you, an Anglophone, okay, are talking about the teaching of French? Are you okay? Are you okay? In the heart of the Anglophone crisis, you are encouraging us to learn French.
To learn French.
But I would take the responsibility and the wisdom to let them understand that if you feel that somebody is using an instrument, particular instrument, to maltreat you or to deprive you of something, know that knowledge is power. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary to get the French so that nobody should deceive you with the French. And that is why I took the courage and went to the regional council And I told them that, first of all, I went to, those who champion the reconstruction process. Minister Porter's song, and at that time, Mr. John Donatus, who was my secondary school teacher, I was happy that his son became a regional delegate like me. And I told him, Father, the issue of imbalance in the management of English and French has been one of the factors that triggered the Anglophone crisis. What is the bilingual component in your reconstruction process? And he told me that there was nothing like that. And I said, oh, I feel like there's an omission. I took courage and went to the regional assembly. And I told them that, yes, you are constructing bridges, you are constructing roads. What about the mental construction of Anglophones who badly need French, and some Francophones in our area who badly need English? I have the feeling that, like what Waterman Rostow said, development starts from the mind. So when you build a mind, then you are building roads, and you are building bridges. And I'm still struggling to convince them, though they have promised to see that the regional assembly could come in to support the bilingual training of our children. So a lot of people consider French, Anglophones, as a language of enslavement. If there are those who might have fallen into the hands of military or police brutality along the line, or those who have lost their property, have lost their family members, and those who truly feel that they are not secessionists. So they feel more, they feel the pains more, because they feel that they are patriotic Cameroonians, and you can understand the pain. That notwithstanding, Jonathan, the preaching that we have carried out, I wish to talk about my bilingual gospel. I created a radio program on CRTV called Bilingualism on the Move, and another one on CBS Radio, the Christian Broadcasting Service of the PCC, called the Bilingual Train. And through these programs, we have been able to sensitize a lot of people. So I'm very convinced that it is largely thanks to that sensitization that we are able to improve on the enrollment, because I made the enrollment at 200 in 2019 when I came. But when the coordinator was congratulating us last year, 2 years ago, we were already on 900 per year, and which was a remarkable and unbelievable achievement, which over which I will not share the glory alone, but also thank my very dynamic staff for the sacrifices they make.
All right, you will tell us more about that, but first we're going to take interviews of the week right now. I'll be back in some few minutes.
In times of conflict, such as what we have on the ground, the conflict we had in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon, and the fighting that we are fighting, the anti-Balaka rebels from the east and around the eastern region of Cameroon, or the east region, and up at the north where we have Boko Haram. The situation usually is not the same. But generally, it is not peculiar to Cameroon that whistleblowers are actually whisked or disappeared, or there's always the sudden disappearance of this. It is not peculiar to Cameroon. But we are not saying that we should be part of what is quite negative, because we must be the pace setter. We should be the people who set the precedent of what is right. Of course, we have to be exemplary when we talk about the different conventions on human rights that we have ratified, such as the CAT Convention, such as the convention that, of course, is there to preserve and to promote the rights of persons. Now, for example, the disappearance of people, it is because in most cases, two groups are usually responsible for certain disappearance. You have the militia groups that are often created. You have the groups that are fighting. For example, in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, there are people who have actually been kidnapped, or they disappeared, and sometimes they were found in the camp of the known state armed groups. But in the case of Cameroon, most often when people disappear, you tend to discover that they were in the camp of the state security forces. I'll take the case of Samuel Wazizi. When Samuel Wazizi disappeared, it was only years later that we got the case of Samuel Wazizi and we understood where he was, until we got the information that he died the way it is. So it is a violation. For example, if someone does what is wrong, as per the law that we have on the ground, you could issue a warrant of arrest. You could actually also serve that person a summon. I don't think that Basiru would have refused a summon if he was called at the competent security forces or the competent security force office or the office in charge of national security within that particular locality. I think that if they had given him a summon, Basiru would have presented himself. But to imagine that he disappeared and appeared in set as the family declared, this is something else. The whereabouts of these people, especially those who are critics of the government, and when we talk about the government in this case, we are looking at the executive arm of the government, because most of these people do not criticize the judiciary. They don't criticize the legislative. Most often they criticize the executive. And because the forces in the country are at the disposal of the executive, sometimes these forces, they tend to see themselves as private forces to some members of the executive. This is where it is totally wrong. Now, the refuser, sometimes, like I earlier said, it becomes very difficult to ascertain who did it. But you can know who did it from the person's line of discussion. To understand this better, we can clearly see that it is some form of intimidation, of course, to cause others not to speak out. But we are in a democracy, and in the democracy that we are, we have to respect the freedom of speech, the right for someone to actually say that which he has to say, provided that person is not being insulted, provided that person is actually not targeting a group of people that would actually jeopardize national security.
That was Nji Lucas, a civil society leader talking about human rights in the Cameroon. ELIME WINSLOW, tell us briefly about the requirements to enroll for the bilingual training program for the Southwest region and the benefits.
Thank you. Before that, let me just remind Cameroonians that the bilingual training program, people call linguistic centers, is not a personal business somewhere, private affair. It is a program created by the Presidency of the Republic and managed at the Presidency of the Republic, so people should understand how important it is. Now, as far as the requirements are concerned, I would say it's just a little fee. Sometimes you have to pay 20,000 francs or 30 for the whole term of bilingual training, so just a little fee. And the benefits are that the first thing is that some people obtain literacy, because in the bilingual training program, we transform illiterates into literate people. It's a program called alphabetization or literacy program, where people who don't know how to read and write, we can transform them. Another thing is that...
So let me get it clear. It's not only for maybe O-level holders, no, advanced level holders.
That is why I said there's no particular requirement, because when you come, whether you are a minister or by Amselam, we do what we call a diagnosis test, placement test. That we interact with you orally a bit, and you answer a few multiple choice questions in the language you want to learn, and we put all of that together following a particular, scheme or a particular, measuring instrument, and we are able to tell you that, okay, you are foundation class, you are this, you are that. But those who cannot read and write at all, we take them as a special course called literacy and transform them into having the ability now to read and write. Now, further benefits are that people are able to further their education. There are a lot of people who are stuck. We have people from Equatorial Guinea, from Chad, who want to enter the University of Buea, for example. And they come to the Linguistic Center to have the English that will permit them to be able to go to UB. Another thing is scholarships. Most people want to get scholarships, but those scholarships require a certain linguistic competence. Sometimes they ask for English proficiency tests. You cannot obtain English or French proficiency tests when you don't have a certain level of language. So we also prepare people for those exams, apart from translation services that we also provide. So we translate people's documents, we edit people's books, we proofread people's books. The next thing is that some people obtain promotion in their services as a result of the bilingual competence that they have. Next, those who do businesses can use the bilingualism to improve on the marketing and to produce better results as far as the businesses are concerned.
And of course, earn more money.
Of course. There is self-confidence. The first thing is that when you are a monolingual person in a bilingual context, okay, you are like a half-baked cake. That's right. Okay, you are like a piece of bread, okay, that is partly stale. so in that case, you have an inferiority complex. But when you become bilingual, you see you are spiritually and emotionally liberated. You feel a certain strength and renewed spirit in you. Okay. The next thing is generally on employment. Those who become bilingual can easily become professional teachers. They can become translators, like me, interpreters.
Upgrade their employability.
Of course. Okay. Or they can get employed because there are people who become bilingual before they go into ASTI, for example, who didn't have any job. So there are people who get jobs just as a result of the fact that they are bilingual. The bilingualism gives them an important access tool into the job market. Right. Next thing is that better school performance. It has been proven that those children who come to the linguistic centers, especially during the long holidays, or what we call the Juniors Intensive Program, benefit a lot of bilingual skills. And then when they go back to school, it has been proven that they do better. And that's why some of them come back. Performance school, yeah, that's right.
All right.
Social communication and marriages. A lot of people have lost a lot of opportunities, even marriages and good social contracts, simply because they are not bilingual. But when you're bilingual,
you're an Anglophone and you have a French-speaking wife, and if communication cannot flow, there will be a problem.
Of course. I even remember there's a day a student came to me in class and said, "Sir, it's a Francophone who wants to marry me. When I go to the village, I cannot communicate with them." And I said, "You are in class now. Get the French. I'm right here to give it to you."
All right, we are wrapping up, and we're going to wrap up on this. You've done some research on the visibility or invisibility in the translation of the Cameroon national anthem from French to English, and this is contained in an analysis that you have done, which is a dissertation submitted to Division 1, Advanced School of Translators and Interpreters of the University of Boya, in partial fulfillment of the requirements for the advance or the award of a master's degree of arts, a master's of art degree in translation. Briefly tell us about the content of your findings as far as the national anthem is concerned and the notion of invisibility and visibility.
That's right. Let me begin with the national anthem. A lot of people, we know, argue, rightly and partly so, that Bernard Fallon failed in his duty as translator of the Cameroon national anthem from French into English.
Because the two versions are completely different.
Of course. We will not say they are completely, they are semantically opposed, but musically harmonized. Because a lot of people are only looking at the wordings, but they are not looking at what you call the singability. Because the most difficult thing in translation is literary translation. Some people like Basnet and so on will tell you that translation, poetry cannot pass through the process of translation, because you have a lot of literary techniques, okay, which you have to translate, and when you move them from one language to another, you cannot get the same thing. And so poetry is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to translate. And so those who feel that Bernard Fallon failed have been focusing more on the semantic element and not the structural, the stylistic, okay, and the musicality on which he worked as a perfect technician. Now, the notion of translators' visibility and invisibility, this is the first time that this research is being carried out in ASTI. I decided to break new grounds with my supervisors because we want to shed light on the translation of the Cameroonian national anthem so that people will have a better opinion and view, and not be extremely violent on the work that Bernard Fallon did, which was partly great. And now, when you talk about the visibility and the invisibility of the translator, visibility simply means at the end of your, when you look at the target text, which is a translated version, we can understand that it is a translated version. But when the translator, wants to be extremely fluent, okay, and uses all other strategies of translation which do not make the translated text or the target text to reflect the source text, then we can say that the translator is invisible. That is it. So when the analysis show that Anglophone is largely invisible because the translated text, which you call the translated text, is not really a translated text per se. It is a rewriting of the Cameroon national anthem. Spend more time rewriting the anthem and not translating it. That's why the analysis show that is 96% rewriting, and just about 8% or 4% transposition.
But 100%
in terms of the
music,
the musicality, the technicality of what makes poetry. The style, the rhythm, okay, the tones, and so on. The musicality, he did it as a perfect literary technician.
All right, we can have more of that in your dissertation, and it's quite voluminous.
That's right.
It must have taken you a lot of sleepless nights.
Of course.
All right, tell us a little more about ASTI before we go.
Okay, ASTI is an Advanced School of Translators and Interpreters based in the University of Buea. It is a school that trains undergraduate translators, master's degree translators and interpreters, and then PhDs in translation, interpretation, and intercultural studies. So this is an intercontinental, an African and beyond African institution that trains what you can call senior translators, which means that an interpreter trained, a translator trained in ASTI can work anywhere in the world. ASTI can boast of people who have passed through it and are working now in the UN and all over the world. And so if you are interested in becoming a translator and interpreter, know that in the University of Buea, in that department, or in the Advanced School of Translators and Interpreters, you can be trained as an international translator and international interpreter.
Right, ELIME, WINSLOW journalist, linguist, researcher, translator, and regional director of the bilingual training program for the Southwest region. Thank you so much for the insights you've shared with us in this edition of The Insight.
Thank you, Babila, and I wish Equinoxe TV success for the hard work that people are doing, and I wish Cameroon, our beloved country, peace, unity, and prosperity.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today's edition of the program. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook and on YouTube. You can also follow the rebroadcast of the program on Friday at 5 p.m. Thank you so much for staying with us. God bless Cameroon.